Respected Dharma Masters, fellow practitioners, guests of this YouTube channel, and non-Buddhists alike, Amituofo. In this video, we will do something a little bit different. We won't have the typical, Dharma talk about one particular subject. We will have a series of questions from one of my disciples, and these are questions that probably a lot of you may have coming into Buddhism, or those of you who are not exactly familiar with Buddhism. Is it a cult? Do I have to not believe in Jesus, or whatever? If I follow the teachings of the Buddha and try to make my life better, what all does this mean? So we will take a few questions, and beginning now. Yeah.
What is Zendo, and why is it called that?
Zendo is actually a Japanese term. Zendo basically means a meditation hall, or a spiritual, in the Japanese language, dojo, gun, in Chinese. It's a fancy word that means nothing more than a meditation hall, or the central place where meditation takes place. Zen, of course, is known in the West by that name. In China, it's Chan, and it really is no difference. The main difference between Chinese Chan and Zen is that the Japanese more centralized the one practice, and it became a separate branch of Buddhism. Whereas in China, both Chan and Pure Land are harmonious together. There are elements of Chan in Pure Land and elements of Pure Land in Chan. And the place that you gather to meditate is called, in Japanese, the Zendo. It's nothing more than Japanese way of saying a spiritual meeting hall, the main hall, meditation hall, or of that nature.
Master, what's inside the offering cups I see on the altar, and why?
Each tradition is different, and within Chinese Pure Land Buddhism, and even within Chinese Pure Land Buddhism, there are several different there are differences between one temple to the other. But the main three things that you see are water, rice, and tea. And the water reminds us, water is very clear. Water is very pure. It is one of the purest of all elements and all of the purest of all substances. So the water is to remind us that our minds and our hearts should always be pure and clean. And how we purify that is through the recitation of the Nianfo, the chanting of Amituofo, and focusing on the Pure Land, which is complete purity. It is a reminder of ourselves, or a reminder to ourselves, rather, to be pure of heart, pure of thought, pure of mind. Rice is a symbolic offering of plenty, because, as you well know, when you cook rice, you begin with 1 cup of rice, but to that 1 cup you add 2 cups of water. And when the rice cooks, the 1 cup multiplies. So the rice is a symbol of not only food in the physical sense, but rice is a symbol of the spiritual food. Rice is a symbol of the doubling. Once you add the purity of your heart, the purity of your speech to the food, those two expand and become more than they originally were. And this shows us that we may start with tainted or defiled hearts. But when we add the pure water of the Buddha's name, the spiritual food, for lack of a better term, is expanded. And unlike normal rice, the Buddha name expands our hearts exponentially. When you recite南無彌勒佛, the cleansingness of the Buddha's name expands your heart to infinite realms, hoping that eventually when you attain birth in the Pure Land, you become the Buddha, and then you can flow forth that exponential blossoming of the, we call it symbolic rice in the heart. The tea is a reminder of the cloudiness of this birth, the cloudiness of samsara, being caught up in the wheel of birth and death, because tea is made of two things. Tea is made of water, pure water, and tea is made of the tea leaves. And when those two combine, they form a dark liquid. Well, this dark liquid reminds us of the cloudiness, the darkness that is within each and every one of our hearts through our past karmas. And moving from right to left, if you see the tea, the rice, the water, if you look at it that way, it shows us that we start defiled, we start impure, we start tainted. But then as we understand Buddhism and we understand the teachings of the Buddha, and we apply Buddhist philosophy to our lives, we recite the Buddha name at every moment of our lives, we then move from the murky and the cloudy into the pure white substance that expands, and then ultimately back to what? Back to the pure, clean water that is our Buddha nature. The Buddha nature that is in each one of us. So these things are a reminder. You'll find other things on the Buddhist altars that are offered. You'll find fruits, sometimes bread, sweets. And all of these are symbols, similar. When the food and water, except for the small rice, water, and teacups, you will find the fruits and things that are typically offered on a Buddhist altar are only left up for a few days, and then they are distributed to fellow Buddhists, the poor, the sick, and these foods have the blessings of the Buddha in them. So you're offering the Buddha these things, and through the recitation of the Buddha name at that altar, these foodstuffs become purified, and they become blessed by the Buddha and the Buddha nature. And when they're distributed, it is a form of mercy, and it is a form of love of our fellow sentient beings, that we would offer them those food things.
Master, why is the Big Happy Buddha the most well-known Buddha amongst Westerners?
Yes, this is a question that is often asked.彌勒, Maitreya Bodhisattva, is typically depicted as the large, smiling, happy Buddha. And I remember hearing a master somewhere saying that彌勒was the greatest, is the PR person of Buddhism. And I like that analogy, so I'm going to use it.彌勒is Maitreya Buddha, the happy, laughing Buddha, is the public relations officer, if you will, of Buddhism. Because he's always smiling, he's always welcoming. It is a smile of happiness and a smile of welcome, a smile that no animosity can be seen within. And I think the reason that the laughing Buddha, the happy Buddha,彌勒, the fat Buddha, whatever you choose to call him in the West, one of the reasons that he is so often seen is because of the simple fact that Maitreya彌勒佛is the future Buddha of this world, eons and eons and eons from now. But even in the Tushita heaven that he is currently in, his power and benevolence and love are still radiating to this world, even though he is yet to be born in this world as the Buddha. In Chinese, especially Chinese and Chinese and Vietnamese temples, you will see depictions of彌勒佛everywhere. Part of the reason I think that he is the most known in the West is because he is the kindest looking to a Westerner. He's fat, he's happy, he's laughing, there's children on his lap. He has fans and candies and sweets and food, and he distributes those to all. But again, this is a symbol. Remember, in Buddhism, we have lots of things that are symbols for things that they're not. The heaviness of the Buddha represents prosperity and represents wealth and fullness of the spirit. Some I've heard say that it is because the彌勒佛will gorge himself on the evils and the sins of this world, and that fatness is a representation of his love for all of us, for all sentient beings. The smile, he is always smiling. Why is he always smiling? Have you ever met someone that is constantly angry, that is constantly bitter? They say harsh, harmful things. But if you make them smile and you make them laugh, the anger, the frustration, the stress melts away. Smiling and laughter does so much for this body. There are scientists now that say that you should laugh or that you should smile. It takes nothing to make us smile. At the drop of a hat we may smile, but at the drop of a hat we may frown. So when we see彌勒佛and we see the laughing Buddha, the happy Buddha, this reminds us that we should always have that happiness in our heart. This reminds us that we should always strive to have and give out that love to our fellow sentient beings, even in this life, even though we're not the Buddha yet. But it's a reminder of our older brothers and sisters who have made it, the Bodhisattvas, those that have already escaped the cycle of birth and death. They are the ones that we should look upon. And彌勒佛is such a popular image, a popular aspect of the future Buddha, because he's so funny and he's so happy and he's joking and laughing and always bringing happiness to children and people the world over, and will until his advent on this earth eons and eons and eons from now. I hope that answers the question.
Master, why is 3 so relevant to the Buddhist culture?
3. Well, as you well know, soon you will be taking the ceremony of the Triple Gem. And again, there's the 3 gems. 3 gems, 3 incense sticks, 3 lights, 3 offerings, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Why 3? Simply because there's many reasons, but the main reason is 3 reminds us of the Triple Gems. And for those of us that have taken refuge in the Triple Gems and are Buddhists, they always remind us of those vows that we took when we recited the refuge ceremony before the refuge master. And what are those 3? The 3 gems, the 3 jewels, the triple jewels or the triple gems, however you want to call it, is the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And we've spoken about the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha in previous videos. So that reminder of 3 constantly on our altars, with our bows, They remind us of in what we took refuge. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And it is a reiteration in our minds daily. Even the smallest things you do on the altar in threes remind us of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And it reminds us of the day that we originally sat and we took refuge. And we said we return and take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And we made those vows. So 3, and in Chinese culture, 3 is a very auspicious number. 3 is san, and in the Chinese character for 3 is actually very interesting because the Chinese character for 3 is literally 3 lines at the bottom, the middle, and the top. And why is that important? How is that connected with Buddhist culture? 3 simple lines. If you take away birth, you have old age, sickness, and death, which are 3 of the 4 parts of suffering. In Pure Land Buddhism, you typically see 3 images, that of Amituofo, Guanyin Pusa, and Dashizhi Pusa. You see 3. Again, 3 reminds us of not only, most importantly, the 3 jewels, the triple gems that we take refuge in. 3 is also an interesting number because 3 reminds us that there are certain stages that we must proceed in to attain enlightenment. And put very, very simply for the purposes of this short Dharma question and answer, we are seeking. We don't know why there is suffering. We don't know why we are born. We don't know why bad things happen. Is it because of a God? Is it because of a God somewhere saying, this should happen? No. Why do bad things happen? Because of our karma. So the first of the line at the very bottom of San, 3, the first line at the bottom of the character reminds us that as we walk through this life, questioning why? Why do these bad things happen? Why am I happy one day and angry the next? Why can I love someone and hate them in an instant? Why? So that bottom line reminds us of this bottom level of understanding. The second line in the character San reminds us and is the stage where we take refuge in the triple gems. We've come into contact with the Buddha-Dharma. We've come into contact with the teachings of the Buddha. And we begin to apply those teachings to our lives. The third line in the character San for 3 reminds us of the attainment and the goal. So we are seekers. We have come into contact with the truth. We've come into contact with the Dharma. We practice the teachings of the Buddha in this life. And at the end of this life, we see the attainment of that goal. And what is that goal? That goal is Buddhahood. That goal is escaping samsara, escaping the cycle of birth and death. So everything we have on the altar reminds us of this 3 and all of and very much more. And we could go into this and have a whole 2-hour-long Dharma talk on 3 and why 3 is important in Buddhist culture and what's on the altar. But I hope this brief answer helped you because, as I said, I could continue on and on.
Master, are there different Buddhist sects, and can you delve into different ones?
That's another conversation that would take a lot longer than we have for this video. But suffice it to say, yes, Pure Land Buddhism is not the only form of Buddhism or sect of Buddhism. But a lot of us sometimes get caught up in names, and we get caught up in sect. What type of Buddhist are you? Are you Pure Land? Are you Shingon, Nichiren? Are you Chan? But briefly, yes. The Buddha Shakyamuni taught us that there are 84,000 different paths to the Dharma, 84,000 paths. And as you see in this world now, in the West, some of the most predominant forms of Buddhism are not Pure Land. However, Pure Land Buddhism is the most widely believed in and practiced form of Buddhism in the world, especially in Southeast Asia, in China, Korea, Japan, Vietnam. But there are other forms of Buddhism. As we know, the Tibetan form of Buddhism with the Dalai Lama and the several subsects of Tibetan forms of Buddhism. There's the Theravada, which are found predominantly in Burma, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand. And they don't believe in the Bodhisattvas, and they don't believe in a lot of things that we Mahayana Buddhists believe in. There are some sects that do not resemble Buddhism, sadly. Some of these sects are found in Japan, and we're not going to name them. We're not going to go into name, because the point of the question I believe you're asking is, it's not so much are there different sects, but why there are different sects. Why is the Buddha-Dharma not just one? The Buddha taught, when Shakyamuni Buddha was alive and actively preaching, the Buddha would teach certain people at the level and the capacity that they were currently in. So if you were very foolish and you were dull and it was hard for you to really exercise your brain, the Buddha would teach very, very simple things. To others, the Buddha taught very esoteric methods that required lots of meditation and thought and application of the brain and the mind. But for the rest of us, simple, everyday sentient beings, the Buddha taught one method. And what makes this method special is that of all of the other sutras, the teachings of the Buddha, he said that there would be one method that would last after all of them were forgotten and buried. And that was the Pure Land method that we follow. And again, as I said, the Pure Land method is the most widely practiced form of Buddhism in the world. But it is the least known in the West. And I think there are several reasons for that. But one of those reasons is, I think, that a lot of Westerners view it as similar to Christianity and Western religions that they have lost faith in. And this shows a lack of understanding as to what the Pure Land sect of Buddhism is. Buddha Amitabha is not Jesus or God. The Pure Land is not heaven as the Christian or Jewish or Muslim understanding. And because the practice is at first glance simple, it seems as though you don't really have to do anything. And all you have to do is say the Buddha name, and then you're immediately going to the Pure Land, and you can commit sins and, violate the precepts, and that's okay because Buddha Amitabha is just going to come and that it's a complete misunderstanding. But the reason that there are so many sects and so many different forms of Buddhism is simply because, let me ask you a question. Just a rough estimate, how many human beings alone are on this earth right now?
I'd say over 100 trillion.
100 trillion, several billion. And each one of those, let's say 97 billion. Of those 97 billion, are their capacities to understand the same?
No.
No. So you teach them in the way that they will understand. So the Buddha did this. The Buddha knew that there was so many different understandings of people and so many different perceptions of how people think. So the Buddha explained things in ways that they would understand. So that's simply why. But no one form of Buddhism is superior to another. And even though there are some sects that say that they are superior and that this is the only true method, that is extremely wrong view. And that actually goes contrary to the teachings of the World Honored One. There are several forms, and you may choose at will what resonates with you. However, just know that the Pure Land method is the surest, most simple, easiest, quick method to attain enlightenment. Is there another question?
Is there a proper way to give food offerings?
Yes and no. If the offering comes from your heart and the offering helps you focus on the teachings of the Buddha, then anyway. There are several stories in past Chinese culture of slow people offering food as a child, or in the method of a child, thinking that the statue is the Buddha and actually needs to eat and is worried that, oh, he's going to be hungry sitting up there all alone. People come and talk to him every so often, and then they go away, and he's standing there welcoming everyone, but he's alone. Tradition tells us that we place the offering in our hands and we bring it to our forehead, just like anything we offer in Buddhism. We bring to our forehead, we recite vows and our own personal words of offering, and then we leave it on the altar. And typically this is left for a day or two, and then the food does not go to waste. The food is not just left there to rot and is a waste, because that would not be logical and that would be contrary to the teachings of the Buddha. We then either consume the food ourselves, or what would be better is to distribute the food to the poor, to the sick, to those that are hungry, to those that visit us. If we offer apples or oranges on the altar before our guests leave our home, we will give them the offering of the orange or the apple, as a symbol of warmness and hospitality and fellowship and the giving heart of the Buddha, and B, to help them receive the Buddha's blessings in this life.
Master, how does one become an official Buddhist?
And we will leave this as the last question. If you say, I follow the Buddhist teachings, and you do your research and you set up a shrine at home and you don't go to a temple, which you don't have to go to, and you say, I'm a Buddhist. I believe in the Buddhist teachings. But you haven't officially taken refuge in the triple jewels, the triple gems. That would be the equivalent of saying that I want a PhD in philosophy, but you don't enroll in the school. You don't physically enroll in a university. And when you say, I am a PhD, but what are your qualifications? What school did you study in? Receiving the triple jewels is very similar to this. And it's only the beginning step. Becoming an official Buddhist, and you decide you want to receive the refuge ceremony. and you take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, that is the equivalent of entering the University of Amituofo, or entering the University of the Buddha. And your professors are the Bodhisattvas. Your professors are Guanyin Pusa, Dashi Pusa,弥勒佛. All of these Bodhisattvas are your professors in this class. So becoming an official Buddhist is a very simple ceremony. It is a very beautiful ceremony. And it really is necessary because study on your own is wonderful. But if you don't have the professors to teach you, you can't graduate the university. And what do we mean by graduating the university? Of course, this is an analogy. Graduating the university means dying in this life. This life is over. And you graduate to the Pure Land, to your graduate school, where you earn your PhD, and your PhD is Buddhahood. And then you become the professor, you become the Buddha, and you go and you teach sentient beings throughout the universe. So becoming an official Buddhist is a beautiful ceremony, but with the exteriors aside, the most important thing to remember about becoming a Buddhist is, officially becoming a Buddhist, is that you are enrolling in the school of the Dharma. You're enrolling in the Buddha's university. And when you graduate, then you go on to the graduate school, the Pure Land. And there you become the professor. You study to earn your PhD. And the PhD is in saving sentient beings throughout the 10 directions in the universe. My friends and Dharma masters and guests of this YouTube channel, I hope these small Dharma talks, these question and answer sessions, help you in your understanding, especially those in the West, because there are so many misconceptions about Buddhism, especially in the West. We hope that if I am able to shed any light, that makes me very, very happy. So, on behalf of the Amituofo Society of Jacksonville, Florida, I wish you all of the best, and may Buddha bless you and your family now and always in this life. And may you strive for the university of the Buddha. May you strive for birth in the Pure Land and escape samsara, this world of suffering and death. Make vows, have faith in Buddha Amituofo, and dedicate merits to your non-Buddhist friends and family, so that at the end of their life, through your merits, they may also attain birth in the Pure Land and eventually become the Buddha and save sentient beings. Amituofo.